So I'm about to go on a trip, and it's not just a normal trip. It's going to be a 2-day painting festival. Yes, I am an oil painter, an illustrator, an artist of mostly 2D art, and I love plein air painting. So much so that I want to go and compete. And I've done this twice before. One time in Edisto, South Carolina. That was a multi-day event where I had the luxury of being in a rental house, and it was very nice. Second time in Newberry, South Carolina. That was a 1-day event, and so I didn't need to stay overnight, and I didn't even need to store multiple paintings or anything like that. But I'm about to go to Hiawassee, Georgia for the Top of Georgia Plein Air Festival. And it is going to be 2 solid days of painting. After the second day, we turn in all our works, framed, for judging. We're allowed to submit 2 works, but we're able to do as many as we want in that time period. So I like to have a selection to choose from and say, okay, these are the 2 best ones, and I'm going to put them in. Now, what I've chosen to do is, instead of having a rental house, I'm going to stay on a campsite. And my only property is going to be my truck. So the only real estate that I have to put things and store things is going to be my truck. So I need to make a few things to make that possible. One, we're going to start with just a way to separate cargo within the truck by making a little table. A small table that goes behind the seat. So I have an extended bed truck, not an extended cab. It's not a full back seat. It's actually quite a confined space, not like an adult could sit back there comfortably. So it's smaller than that, but it's a decent size, and I can add a little table to kind of put my tripod, my pallet, or whatever kind of under there, and then I can also stack things on top of the table, so that way I can easily grab the things that are under it and also be able to take the things sitting on top as well. So it would just give a little bit of flexibility, the same way a system of shelves would work. Now, another thing that would be a system of shelves would be a painting drying rack. So if you can imagine multiple small shelves in a row, and you put the wet paintings inside, and they dry on their own. They don't bump into each other. They don't even slide around. They're going to be kind of at an angle and secured in the truck in a way that even if I'm going through switchbacks in the mountains, they're not going to be flying around. In addition to that, I have a tripod that I'm going to use for the activity of painting itself. And I need an updated palette for that. You know, I've made a palette in the past that sits on the tripod, but it's a little bit bulky, and it's kind of a modular system. I'm not going to get into the details. Basically, I want a new one of those, and I'm going to make it. So if you'll come along with me, I will show you kind of my process of DIYing together some things that are going to work. So one of the things that's going to be really helpful as I do more of these art trips is sort of maximizing the cargo in my truck. And so I'm trying to come up with a way to add a little more shelving basically in here. So I want to create a bench top that utilizes this sort of bench seat. So we'll start here with just a board that goes across and then back to about halfway. And the reason I'm ending it there is in case I do need to sleep in this seat, that it can come all the way back, but I'll still have this area as storage. And so I've measured it all out, and it's going to be about this deep and this wide. There are going to be 2 legs on the back that are going to sit on this raised portion. So that's a little bit different height than the last leg, which is going to go here on this corner of the sort of surface. So that one's going to be a little bit deeper. And yeah, so let's build it. So I'm kind of designing this on the fly, and this is the cutoff piece, and this over here is the final bench top piece. It's going to be a nice flat surface to put stuff on, and then underneath I can slide a book bag or something like that, or just like general things that I need to keep in the car, like a toolkit and stuff. But I tried to maximize sort of the area when making these legs, so I've kind of made this L shape, and I'm going to corner brace this to the wood top in 2 points, here, here, and here. And so you can see that the front leg it needed to be longer, so that kind of nestled in right there above these 2 back legs, which are flipped on each other's axis here. And this is going to be waist, and this is going to be waist, which is good, because look at that. That just worked out perfectly that knot right there is going to go. So just thought that was kind of neat as I was just kind of making this up as I go. It just kind of worked out. All right, it's time to cut these legs for my backseat bench. And I think I already said I showed all this stuff, so let's get to it. Okay, so while I was cutting this one piece, it started to become delaminated, and so I can use some wood glue and get this back together so it's not going to be wasted. So luckily I caught that and it didn't break all the way off. So there you have it. We're gonna clamp it together, and the wood glue is doing its job. All right, now it's time to sand the surface, and I'm going to end up staining it as well with a solid stain, the same color as that fence right there, since I have leftover stain, and it'll match the interior of the truck, so it'll be pretty nice. So let's get to sanding. All right, so I've got my bench shelf flipped upside down, and I'm about to put the first leg on it, which is going to be this front leg. So I've made this jig. I made this a long time ago so that I could always get square when I glue something down or when I fasten it to something else. And so I've made this and put it in place, so now I just have to line this up, get it clamped on, put some glue down, and then I'm going to also screw it in just so it's really nice and tight. So here's what it looks like. Now, this is a test. I wanted to make sure everything fit perfectly well, and it does, but it is a bit wobbly. You can see that, and that's because it just doesn't have enough support right there. So I think I'm gonna put like a wedge in here, just another piece of scrap wood. And it doesn't even need to be attached to it. I just want to keep it in there and keep it flat. So you can see that that leg wants to come up in the back. So I want to get this nice and level so that it stays secure all the time, but also easy to take back out too. So there it is, the final bench with its extra little piece. Very stable. Sits right on that seat there. I've got the ability to still put things like my hat or my umbrella can hang there in the truck, and I have those ready for when I need them. But I also have a surface that I can put a box on or something like that. And then also I have the space under it to slide other stuff. All right, so look what we have here. This is a cabinet face. It is a lot of nice solid wood material that I was able to find on Facebook Marketplace for $10. And what this is going to be in the end is basically a drying rack for paintings. So if you can imagine, each one of these doors are now shelves, and I can cut a lot of this wood away so that it's lighter, but the structure is there and it's nice. But basically I need to slide a painting in there, let it dry, and then you'll have all 6 of these doors kind of on top of this. It'll be like a box sort of series of little shelves. So what I need to do is take apart all these doors and start figuring out the exact size and how it's all going to fit together. So here we go. Okay, so this is what became of the cabinets. See, they have the little hinge screw holes and all that stuff going on. They are now in a drying rack. This is something that would fit in my passenger seat. I need to do a few more things to make this more feasible to take with me. One is I'm gonna cut a bunch of holes in these so they are much lighter, and like that is really going to add up in terms of how much weight is dropped off of this thing. So every single solid wood panel needs to look like Swiss cheese, including this bottom. And these pieces I want to replace, instead of this pine furring strip, which you can see split, I want to replace that with another piece of plywood like this. So that should alleviate the splitting issue, hopefully, if it's in decent shape. Oh, these pieces also need stops on them, so I need to put, I don't know, screws every, few inches or whatever, just so that I can hold my pieces in and they won't slide out. Oh, and I need to round off these edges. So, Operation Weight Reduction. I have just roughly jigsawed out a bunch of weight from this unit. So each one of these is now cut into like a grate, I guess you could call it, kind of like a storm drain or something. And so this is going to reduce the weight by probably about half. And I'm having to use my porch because it's starting to rain today, but yeah, so I've cut all this out and now I'm ready to put it back together. So another thing that I need to make is a pallet that fits this tripod that I got. And it's a really lightweight tripod, and it's It's a little bit flimsy, but I think it's going to work once I start weighing things down onto it. And so I want a pallet that slides right down and rests on these two pieces. And I've measured this width and gotten that just right. And I've also made this, I added a piece that stabilizes it some. And then the great thing about this is, if I can get this to move, it can be variable in size, and I can push it down and it'll hold a piece in place. And so that's going to be real helpful. I won't need all kinds of clips and things on my canvas pressing into the oil paint. It'll just be from the top and bottom held together that way, and then I can say whoop and just pick this whole thing up and take it with me. And then I can, once I'm at my truck, I can put it into the drying rack. I have over here what I'm going to make a new palette with, and so I took this 11 by 14 piece of glass out of an old frame, and I'm mapping out what my new palette is going to look like. So this part back here has cutaways like this. If you can see that shape, this is all going to be cut away, and you put it over the tripod legs when they're narrow. You put it over that, and then as you go down, the taper will hold it in place. And this is the exact size of those legs, so it should be nice and rectangular and have a lot of grip on that, and it should just hang. And then this is going to be cut away, so this line goes across here. It's really only as big as it needs to be. And then I've got this piece of basically it's trim, and I'm going to frame the glass with that so that it has some depth to it. So when I add paint to the palette, it's not going to be easy to get like all over my hands and all over my clothes and stuff like that. So we're gonna have an elevated frame all the way around, and then I'm going to also do a lid, so I can put a piece over the whole top of this and I won't have to touch the wet paint. So I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting this shape out. Here we have my final design of the palette, and I'm unveiling it by slowly unscrewing the lid. So the weather stripping, so I added weather stripping to this so that it would kind of have a seal on it, but it's really not hanging in there very well. I don't know about that. I might have to let that sit overnight and hope it works out. I have the construction cement all around the edges, so if, say, I have some very liquidy, thinned paint go down, I don't want it to be able to go up under there. So I did a seal all the way around with the construction cement. And now I'm going to drill some holes for the brushes, and I've collected my 4 favorite brushes that I like to use. It's this big boy flat that's relatively stiff, and 2 somewhat more detail brushes. And then I've got the corresponding diameter to these that I'm going to make the holes with. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So these will all sit in there real nice. And there you go. That's it. So we'll pack these brushes up where they're supposed to go. But now I've got my new oil palette. So here I am. I am out and about to do another painting. I've already done one this morning, and I saw this truck on the side of the road and I thought that would be really cool to do a painting of. And I have this canvas, it's already crimson, sort of a very similar color scheme as the truck. You know, they kind of blend in there in the video frame. And so I'm going to do a little recording of the painting as well. But before that, I wanted to show you everything that I put into the truck to make this happen. So obviously I pack away the tripods and things like that. That's easy. But here you can see the drying rack working, doing its job. I've got several paintings inside of it. I've got the bench here. It's holding up several things and keeping things under it still accessible, which is what I wanted. I have a water bottle hanging up, and then in the back I've got this large weatherproof cargo that I'm keeping some things in. Some things that, you know, if they get too hot, that's not a problem. You know, no delicate electronics or anything like that. But yeah, this is my whole traveling, camping truck setup, and later on I'm going to try putting my tent up. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, let me set up my camera. Alright, here we are back home after the event. These are the 4 paintings I have left. 1 sold, so that's nice. The 3 on the left were the ones that I did not submit to the final show and judging. And then the one on the right was my personal favorite, and the one that actually won a 4th place ribbon. So I'll talk about that in a second. But you'll notice as I get closer to these, they lack a lot of refined detail, but that's what kind of the point is with plein air. So I try to get away with a lot of textural you know, impressions of foliage and things like that. Moving on, this one was really fun, and I think it's a great composition and nicely done painting, but it wasn't one of the valid locations on the list, which I found out kind of after the fact, after I had done it. So then I did one at an old jail. You can see the kind of jail looking bars on that window up there. And this one was done early in the morning, and so I wanted to try to get that golden sunrise look using a golden or a yellow ochre toned canvas. So I think that's pretty cool. And then, of course, this one, I love to do vehicles in my work, and so there was an old, basically an old wrecker truck that was parked at a place called the Pioneer Village. It's a little pop-up market that a lot of vendors will set up at the fairgrounds, and this is just sort of a decorative element, the truck itself. And so I did a vertical composition for a couple of reasons. One, I had a certain amount of frames that were wired landscape, and then I had some frames that were already wired for portrait style. And so I decided I'll do 3 landscape and up to 3 portrait style. And so I only ended up doing 5 paintings. So we got 3 landscape style and then 1 portrait. But I like doing the portrait styles because you can do things like this light pole. You know, you can lead with a pole all the way down to the ground and then use the rest of the sort of L-shaped composition for the other elements of interest. And so that was one of the things that the judge really liked. He also liked that I didn't go crazy with the detail. And I'm going to zoom in here so you can kind of see. But it's just, you know, it's just blobs of paint, really. The paint is meticulously mixed, so it's exactly the color I want it to be, but it's just globs of paint. And it's on top of this orange background, which obviously comes through here and all over, and kind of works as an outline for all the different elements, including the trees, which are kind of nice to do that way. So it almost looks like it's, you know, late in the evening, which is when I was doing it, and gets the point across that it was kind of a golden hour sort of thing. Even though the sky is blue, it looks like golden sunlight is kind of flowing across the whole image. So yeah, those are my 4 paintings that I brought home. And I guess I could also show off the stand that I'm using. It's a TV stand that I, of course, DIY modified to make it work for me. So I added these 2x4s across the top, and they just connect with screws. Nothing's hard screwed in, it just kind of slots in place, and then you use the S hooks to do that. And then you see there's the Top of Georgia Plein Air Festival stickers that they put on your canvases when you bring them in, and you'll notice that I utilize the mat here. This mat was included in the frame, and I just flip it around back so that the canvas itself is visible, and that's how they check to see if you're submitting work that was not already created before the event. It's really nice to see them in natural lighting. I don't think they look as good, unfortunately, in the studio, because that's kind of the nature of plein air. You make it outside, you expect the lighting to be a certain way, and then you bring it inside and it's like, this doesn't quite look right. So, you know, sometimes you have to punch up the values or change some things in the studio to make it work that way. But yeah, this one in particular I think looks a lot better in sunlight. That's pretty much all I have to say about these paintings, and I think the whole experience was a great success.